where the organizers of this conference behind me call this moment a stress test for the transatlantic alliance. Under a torrent of Trumpian tweets, often contradictory and confusing on the world's most challenging issues, they are urging the West to organize and to seize the day, to continue defending security and shared democratic values. They worry about the Trump administration's commitment to Europe, about whether they alone will be able to ward off the threats from Russia, or indeed whether they will be able to uphold the nuclear deal with Iran. I began the day with an exclusive interview with Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif. I asked him about Donald Trump's threats to that Iran nuclear deal, to the constant broadsides against Tehran, and the new sanctions slapped on because of Iran's latest ballistic missile test. Foreign Minister, welcome to the program.
Good to be with you.
When the United States says that they put Iran on notice, and as you heard President Trump saying that actually Iran has been very lucky, Obama administration was very kind to you, what's your answer to that?
Well, first of all, everybody over the past 38 years has tested Iran, and they all know that Iran is hardly moved by threats. We do not respond well to threats. We respond very well to respect, mutual respect, and mutual interest. I believe President Obama and his administration tried every other option. They were the first who tried the crippling sanctions. The net result is, when they started the sanctions, we had less than 200 centrifuges spinning. When they came to the negotiating table, we had 20,000 centrifuges spinning. So the reason President Obama and Secretary Kerry came to the negotiating table was that sanctions had not worked.
So when you hear President Trump saying this is the worst deal ever, that we're going to do this, that, or the other, rip it up, renegotiate it, move the goalposts, add more pressures on Iran for other behavior, not just the nuclear parameters, regional hegemony, terrorism. What do you say about that? Well, do you think it will happen?
First of all, I believe this was the best deal that was possible for all concerned. Not just for Iran, but for the United States too. I'm sure they would have tried, and they did try, to get a different deal. But this was what was possible. We had other preferences too. So we had to come to an agreement on a middle ground. And I believe a deal is a good deal when nobody is totally happy with it.
So again, what do you think, sitting in Tehran, do you believe the Trump administration will try somehow to change the deal? What have you heard from your interlocutors? You say it's not a bilateral deal. So what have you heard from European ministers who've spoken to the Trump administration?
I believe everybody, including experts in the United States, know that this is the best deal that was possible. Particularly in Europe. Europe played an important role in getting to the deal, and we've heard every representative of European countries, UK, France, Germany, the European Union, others, making the same statement that this deal is not open for renegotiation. We've heard Russia and China making the same statement.
As you very well know, certainly the US administration under President Trump, certainly certain Arab allies of the United States, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, certainly Israel, and many other countries are very worried about the projection of Iranian power. You recently gave a very impassioned speech about this ballistic missile test in which you said it was defensive. But people are watching Syria, and they're seeing that without Iran, this murderous regime would not still be in power. And they're wondering, where was the defensive nature of your intervention on behalf of Bashar Assad in Syria?
Well, I think if they want to look at regional influence, they need to look at the wrong choices that they have made.
But specifically, I need to ask about this.
Yes,
because I'm not asking about them, I'm asking about Iran.
Yes,
Why come in on the side of the Middle East Milosevic?
It's your impression. But
Mr. Foreign Minister, there are 500,000 people dead. There are 12 million refugees. There's torture. There's mass hanging. It's not my impression. Those are the facts.
No, those are not the facts, because you had a group in Syria that was armed and equipped and financed by outside forces. Mistakes were made in the beginning, but the worst mistake of all was to arm a group of terrorists who are not only a threat to Syria, but a threat globally. Mistakes were made in Syria, as in the past mistakes had been made. The same people who armed Daesh, armed the terrorist groups, were the same people who armed Saddam Hussein, were the same people who created and armed Al-Qaeda, that a group of countries, which the United States calls allies, plus the United States itself, and here I'm referring to President Trump himself during his campaign, saying that Daesh is a creation, ISIS is a creation of the United States government.
You defend very passionately the way the world sat by and watched Saddam Hussein gas Iran during the Iran-Iraq war with no accountability. And yet you're supporting Bashar Assad, who's been gassing his own people with chemical weapons, with chlorine gas and barrel bombs. It's really hard to understand why you would take that position.
No, we never support the use of chemical weapons because we were victims of chemical weapons.
Right, but they're using it and you're supporting them.
Hold on. We made a very clear stand against the use of chemical weapons. We were instrumental in getting the international agreement on the removal of chemical weapons from Syria. Unfortunately, that international agreement lacks a very serious element, and that is to remove chemical weapons from the stockpiles of ISIS and al-Nusra, who have now been confirmed, even by the United States, as having used chemical weapons against Syrians.
There is word in the United States that President Trump may commit ground forces to Syria to fight ISIS, and that is his mission. He wants to destroy ISIS. Would you support that?
No, we have to see what created ISIS. I believe what created ISIS, in addition to very clear armaments and financial support that came from certain allies of the United States, it was a fact of occupation. We need to look at this and not commit to solutions that are, instead of being solutions, are in fact part of the problem.
So you wouldn't support?
I believe the presence of foreign troops in an Arab territory against the wish of the government and the people of those territories is in and of itself a recipe for these demagogues, these extremists, to rally behind and to gain new support and to recruit new fighters who are disenfranchised youth, who have been deprived of their dignity because of certain policies that have been followed. So we need to look at this from a comprehensive approach. We should not try to address one particular element and then augment the problem itself.
Can I move on to why people in the region are worried about Iran today? Prime Minister Netanyahu, standing next to President Trump, said that, yes, Iran says its missiles are defensive, but on them are written, "We must destroy Israel."
I challenge anybody who's making accusations against Iran, who's complaining against Iran, simply to make a simple statement. This is not anything outlandish. We have never used our weapons except in self-defense. For 250 years, we have never invaded any country. But anybody who dared to invade us, even when the international community, the entire world was behind them, just like Saddam Hussein, we showed them that they cannot defeat the resistance of our people. We will resist aggression. We need means to defend ourselves.
Why do they have "destroy Israel" on them when they get fired off?
Well, they make statements every day that they want to destroy Iran. They make statements. You've heard the statement, I'm sure you've heard the statement that all options are on the table. You know what that means? All options are on the table means that they are threatening on a daily basis to use force against Iran. We've never made that threat at any level of government or Iranian system against anybody.
And last question. In response to a lot of what's coming from the Trump administration, the Supreme Leader said, you know, we want to thank Mr. Trump for finally showing the true face of the United States. And it seems like, you know, tensions inside Iran, you know, the death to America chance, all those things that seem to be easing off after the nuclear deal have come to the fore. How would you describe the mood inside the country? Where do you think this is going to lead?
Well, the U.S. policy, at least declared policy, was that they respected the Iranian people and had differences with the Iranian government. Now, the current administration, unfortunately, decided to insult the entire Iranian nation, who compose a large segment of, Iranian migrants, people of Iranian origin, people who are studying in the United States.
You're talking
people,
about the ban, of course.
The ban. And that was an affront to the entire nation, who has not committed one single act of terror. You cannot find any Iranian who has committed a single act of terror against Americans in any of these atrocities that have taken place. Iran has always condemned every single terrorist incident in the United States since 9/11. And for the current administration to come and pick Iranians of all people, who are a very successful group in the United States, the most educated, according to statistics, the most educated, the most successful in business in the Silicon Valley, elsewhere in the United States, are Iranian migrants. And to insult them was in fact to show that that policy, or stated policy, of differentiating was not accurate. That statement was false, and that created the reaction of the Iranian people.
Foreign Minister, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Good to be with you.